I have disagreements with a lot of people. Look, I'm one of a handful of people that don't take corporate PAC money.
What? That's new to me. I didn't know that. Cory Booker doesn't take any super PACs.
What about APAC money? You take APAC money, don't you?
A minuscule percentage of my resources come
Why would you try this line?
I've had it, and I've said it a million times, with adults taking babies into adult-only.
Okay, so I'm not going to play this whole thing. It's an hour long, but I did see the big viral clip from yesterday, and I wanted to bring this up because if you're an American right now, you're probably excited for something called the midterms, right? Right now, everything is dark and dire, and, ice reigns, and there's a fascistic takeover of your government and the erosion of democracy, and hope is on the way in the form of there's going to be a midterm election, and at that point, you can try and grab the levers of power back by the Democrats. Unfortunately, a lot of the corporate Democrats and the libs and the neo-libs, all of them are utter and complete shit as well. They're really shitty people. Now, granted, they're not as shit as full-blown Nazis and white supremacists, and that's basically been, I'd say, their carrying card for a long time. Like, we don't have to be good, even great, but we're not that, and that's our selling point. So we offer you very little. We are going to continue to do wealth concentration, and that's basically the calling card of liberalism here in Canada as well. Same thing with Mark Carney. He sucks. He's terrible. He's an utter and complete piece of shit, and he seems very, very bent on doing anything he can to really benefit billionaires, the business class, the corporate class, the owning class, the capitalist class. Same thing with corporate Democrats. They're so out of touch now that they don't understand why the majority of the younger generations are completely done with this shit. Completely, like, it's over. There's the paradigm. The world has shifted. People on the left or even on the liberal side who are waking up, who aren't being like, I choose fascism. All of them are just being like, I'm sick of this. I'm sick of the entire, politicization, all the politique, all the consistently answering questions that should be very simple to answer. Hey, by the way, Israel is committing a genocide. Oh, that's a complicated question. Benjamin Netanyahu is a war criminal. Well, I think that this is not a yes or no answer. I think this is something that bears a lot of discussion, and we should be going deep into this and asking why. We even question perhaps sometimes. I mean, has anyone brought up the persecution of Christians in countries in Africa? Why don't we talk about that? These kind of responses people are done with, right? And so for a long time, I think the Democrats, especially corporate Democrats, they had this thing. Donald Trump wins the election. Who can we blame? What groups? Who do we go after? Is it because the Democrats went too pro-trans? Is it because the Democrats went too pro-immigrant? Is it because the Democrats went too woke? Those are all the things that are being proposed. Is it because the Democrats didn't have a leftist Joe Rogan? Because if they did, then they could have competed with Joe Rogan. So maybe that's what they need. They need a podcaster, a podcast bro, someone who's willing to be. And like, I thought this was all silly from the jump, because immediately I was like, there's so many very, very popular Democratic podcasts already. You got David Pakman, Midas Touch, Brian Taylor Cohen. These are people who basically, while they might have some slight criticisms of the Democratic Party, they serve to promote the Democrats and to criticize Republicans. That's the ethos of their entire shows. Pod Save America, and another really big one, right? There's a lot of them. Yes, competing with them is Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, all these other super huge podcasts. But the idea that like the Democrats just don't have any kind of online media is absurd. The thing is, the truth was, they don't want to have someone who actually is, not distinctly political in either direction, but is willing to have conversations with anyone. And you can really see in this example here with Cory Booker coming on to the I've Had It podcast, which, that they are liberals for sure. But these women have been doing a very good job lately of really criticizing a lot of problems with the corporate Democrats and the Democratic elite. And Cory Booker comes on here and makes an absolute absurd, spectacle of himself in his interview.
I think so. I think we're much better people by the time we're in our 50s. And so that makes sense.
Much more. People keep saying what to do, and time is of the essence.
Well, we want to talk to you about the country. And it feels like the Democratic opposition is just not getting.
They're no longer liberals. They're wine mumrads. Oh, I like that. Okay, we'll go with that.
There are votes that you've made that were heartbreaking to me, like the vote for Kushner. that really pissed me off, because I feel like this administration, it's not, are they fascist? They are fascist. It's not, we're on the precipice of fascism. We have Pritzker, Texas is sending troops to Illinois. I mean, and I feel like the opposition needs to be fuck no across the board. We're not giving you a centimeter. And I think there's been a lot of capitulation. I think there's been a lot of Neville Chamberlain type appeasement from Democratic leadership. And you're one of them that's kind of been disappointing to me, because we podcasted before. They're serious about Project 2025. They're going to do all this shit. And they're doing every single bit of it. So what do you think? What do you have to say about the capitulation that you've participated in and where the Democratic Party is right now?
Well, first of all, I would say very pointedly that one of the things I dislike about the Democratic Party is that we do a circular firing squad all the time. Their party, they disagree. There's wild disagreements in the Republican tent, and yet they don't shoot at each other. And we have a really good way of.
There's an adage: never answer in politics the question that you were asked. Answer the question you wish they had asked. Because if you have someone tell you, I was really disappointed in your vote in order to confirm some of these outright authoritarian fascists into power, that made me very sad. I'm sad. Can you address that? Well, I mean, I will address the fact that I think that there's a problem where we Democrats turn on each other, and that's bad. We shouldn't hate on one another.
Holding up these purity tests that if I agree with you on 95,
that's such bullshit. That is bullshit. They fire at each other all the time. Trump has sent so many people out to pasture, so many people that he calls rhinos. Liz Cheney can tell you that they have the firing.
Okay, yeah, I'll agree. They are wine mum rads. I'll go with that. But hey, this is why ultimately I don't think when they say we want, like, we need to be able to go on to these shows, these liberal Joe Rogan podcasts, and spread our message. You don't actually want to be challenged, right? You don't want people to be like, hey, I'm just going to be like, as a podcaster, because that's what I am. I'm not a politician. I am not in a position of power like you are. You are a lawmaker. You get to set the laws, etc. I just want to say, here's why the people whom I'm, basically trying to represent in this case, why they're sad and disappointed in how y'all are conducting yourselves.
Squad as well. It's not a purity test. It's a, are we in this fight, and are we being beholden to corporations and corporate interests, or were we really the party of the working class? And that's what I think the message.
Two things I'll say. First of all, if everybody in your coalition agrees with you on everything, your coalition's not big enough. If we don't have disagreements, if we don't have disagreements, then we're talking in an echo chamber. Thank God I sit in the caucus with people. I couldn't win in some of my colleague states, perhaps, but we have lots of different agreements, but we are united in the fight against Trump. And I'll say number two, which is really important, is that, we feel the existential urgency. And even though we don't agree on everything, I'm in the trenches with some of the best fighters I have, from veterans like Mark Kelly and Tammy Duckworth, who have, I know Mark's voted on some people.
Well, as a soldier in the trenches, I got to say, as an outsider for a number of reasons. See, I'm in a completely different country, okay? I just got to say, she brought up a very clear example of you kind of holding up the white flag, like surrendering. Like, why would you vote to put all of these horrifying people into positions of power? Like, I get, like, the game is the game, all right? I mean, we have to barter and exchange. I can't do 100% what you would want. I can't always fight. There are times when you have to understand that it's in service of a greater cause for me to maybe empower and embolden fascism. But then, that gives me chances to fight in other opportunities. Like, that's why it's really great to finally see someone just be like, that's bullshit. What are you talking about?
Didn't vote for. So we may not be absolutist, but the fighters that I'm in the trench with right now, the sacrifices that they're making for this fight is pretty tremendous. So I have disagreements with a lot of people. Look, I'm one of a handful of people that don't take corporate PAC money. I don't understand my Democratic
What
Party.
about
What? That's new to me. I didn't know that. Cory Booker doesn't take any super PACs. I'm gonna have to look this up.
APAC money. You take APAC money, don't you?
A minuscule percentage of my resources come
Why would you try this line? I'm sorry, wait. Was this because like a think tank or a group of people got together and they're like, sir, it's been really popular, apparently, with the candidates like Bernie Sanders, AOC, and Zoran Mamdani, when they say that they haven't accepted any corporate super PAC funds. Oh, okay. So you should just say that. But I have. Oh, yeah, but just say it anyway. It just seems to be, it's polling really well. Just say that out loud. Just put it out there, and ideally, no one questions it.
It's like 800,000.
Yeah, but that's a lifetime number of.
Yeah, but I mean, look, I know for the unwashed pores, that sounds like a lot of money, okay? No, I get that. But you just got to understand, it's over a long period of time that I've been accepting all of this blood money.
Raising tens of millions of dollars. Let me give you the right stat. The majority of my money comes from small dollar contributions. By last report, I think 76% of it came from people that gave 20.
Okay, so if that's true, which now I don't know because it just seems like you're lying through your teeth, that's the thing you start with. You run with that. You could be like, well, I'm really proud of the fact that a large percentage, I would say the vast majority of my donations come from one-time, small-time donors. That's really cool. And then no one has to be like, oh, okay, so you're lying. Because if you're like, I don't accept any, I said any, this is definitely the qualifier, any super PAC money. And I'm very proud of that fact. So you've never accepted money from APAC? Crumbs, small babies, small bean, little teeny amounts. All right, very, very. It's not in the scheme of things even really like representative of anything. I think it's over $800,000, right? Over the course of time. Time is long. Do you understand that?
$25 or less. So this to me is about, again, we could pick at each other, or we could do what we need to be doing right now, is joining in a chorus of conviction.
See right there, it's don't question my corruption and let's unite to fight the common enemy, which is the fascists. Okay, I hear you. Why did you vote some of the fascists into power? See, what we're doing here is this is the problem with the Democrats. We have what is called, I call it, a circular firing squad, whereas the Republicans do not have that at all. Oh, that's bullshit. What are you talking about? They fight all the time. They're constantly fighting. There's nothing wrong. It's a healthy practice, I'll even say, to be able to actually call out, say, the corruption of our own members. It shows that we actually care about these kind of things. True. Which is why I'm so proud that I've never accepted a single cent, not one penny, I say, a farthing of money from a super PAC. I am 100% independently funded. That's not true, though. You did accept money from APAC, didn't you? A small percentage. A crumb, my dear. Oh, barely anything at all. Yes. Did you even notice it?
To condemn it. And again, I'm a child of civil rights activists. You think Malcolm X and Martin Luther King agreed on everything? No. Do you think-
Oh, my God. So we're into invoking civil rights leaders now as an equivalent for someone calling you out to your face that you lied blatantly on air in a podcast that you in fact do not accept any money from super PACs. All right.
Fred Shuttle, in fact, Ella Baker had lots of criticisms about King, but when it came to the fight, they joined together and created a movement that was successful. And that's really what my focus is. And as the only person in the caucus that lives in a low-income Black and brown neighborhood below the poverty line, I still remember when some progressives from the suburbs came down to protest me, and they were literally...
Is this something that has been discussed behind the scenes, by the way? Are they like, if you get asked the real questions, if anyone actually has the audacity to call you out on your shit, make sure that you kind of try and steer the conversation towards something that'll probably make them uncomfortable if they keep doing that. So in this situation, we have two white women, right? And like, it would be really, really messed up if they started saying that, in some ways they know more about the Black experience than, say, a Black American who's lived through it. So invoke that in the conversation if they're asking questions about you accepting super PAC donations, and then go down that line, because it would be terrible. It would look really, really bad on them.
Chased away by my neighbors because we are in a urgency every day. I see it We are in an urgency where real people are getting hurt. When I go up and down in New Jersey, they don't care about the fact that I took 1% of my money from some group. They care about, what are you doing to restore my health care? What are you doing to fight for my...
That is such a disingenuous argument, to invoke like the poverty of other people to try and shield yourself from a very fair call out. You lied. You got caught in a lie. She called you out for the lie to your face. You then admitted that you had been lying, you know, indirectly. And then at which point she was trying to say, do you not see this as a problem? Because she's trying to get to the root of this problem. Something that, again, is alienating the average voter from wanting to vote for the corporate Democratic Party at a time when they are the only alternative to the rise of this far-right fascistic regime. And it's like, so can we not demand better of our own politicians in this case? And then it's like, hey, you know, when I am, you know, dealing with impoverished members of my own community, they're not asking me about how much money I took from, you know, AIPAC. They're wondering, how am I going to put food on the table? And who are you to take away that food?
That I can't make rent. And in my caucus right now, we're standing up and fighting for those things and not capitulating, as you said, to Donald Trump's attempts to deny 22 million Americans health care, to see healthcare costs double for lots of them.
Well, I think the base feels like right now, and I know that you're in the Beltway, but I think the Democratic base feels like there is a disconnect. Like, we hear you, like when you did your 25-hour speech, I was like, go, Cory, I love this. That is amazing. And then there's a photo shoot with you with Benjamin Netanyahu. And I was just like, what in the actual fuck?
Okay. All right. I am sold. I love her. I think this is glorious because you know what this is? She is speaking to normies so well right now. I don't even mean this in a condescending way. I know people hear that term, that they feel like it's an insult. It's not. The vast majority of people are not online political sickos like myself who just need to know everything about all the different world governments. How are coups happening right now in Madagascar? What is the implication of the military taking over? What's going on with the poverty in Myanmar? Is that directly affected by you know, Elon Musk and then the removal of the US Aid Foundation funding for their food program? Like, people are not that tapped in, and a lot of them at the end of the day, yeah, that it is a very easy, quick selling point, late night talk show kind of stuff. That it's Jimmy Kimmel tier, right? Where it's basically like, by the way, I don't know if you knew this, but Cory Booker, he did a fucking badass filibuster. And then all the libs, they just get so excited about that shit. It's just like lib porn to them. Like, that is crazy. Look at this guy fight. He's our fucking hero of the hour. And she's so right, where it's just basically like, is this performative? Like, is any of this actually tangibly trying to enact results that'll actually benefit the people? Or is this all bullshit? Because when I see you hanging out with a known war criminal who is, you know, actively genociding Palestinians, it makes me think that you don't care about human beings at all. It feels like bullshit. And to say that to his face, like, I'm assuming he's going to get very defensive now.
How can he do that? It was heartbreaking. I felt betrayed.
Yeah,
and that hang on, and that doesn't just happen in an echo chamber. It's important when there are Democrats like you, where the base, we should make each other better. We need to evolve. And I love that you come on here. We need to have these conversations. It's not a purity test. We want credible messengers. Because when we are down the middle and beholden to corporate interests, then we leave this vacuum, and that's how fascism has flourished. And so for myself and a lot of our listeners, when I saw the picture with Benjamin Netanyahu, I felt like it diminished your 25 hours. That's how it felt.
Failure to win over normies is the left's greatest weakness. We've come so close so many times, though, right? A number of times. I mean, one really great victory is Zoran Mamdani. Why exactly is Zoran Mamdani just surging in lovability? It's because, again, his messaging was not like, yes, I'm here to read out the Communist Manifesto to each and every one of you. Prepare. I am now going. Page 1. There is a specter haunting Europe. No, it's like, hey, by the way, I'm one of you. I love New York. I love living in New York. I just can't afford to do it. Most likely like you, right? I love being able to buy late night shawarma at one of these food carts. But guess what? It used to cost $6 or $7. Now it costs $10. I figured out a way to make it only cost $6 or $7 again. The problem is this. I just found out that apparently a lot of these food carts, they actually are buying the licenses to operate because we only give out a limited amount of them. And the people who already own them, they rent them out like landlords because they don't actually work in the carts anymore. So people who come along and want to sell that food, they get these like licenses rented out. Some of them cost $40,000 a year, and they have to factor that into their costs. So every single time you're buying one of these, you're paying a food cart license owning landlord a couple bucks per box. But if we open up access to more licenses so more vendors can have these licenses directly from the city, as they should in the first place, this is why all of this should have been established, you will be able to buy that box of food again for $6 to $7. Doesn't that sound good? And everyone, it doesn't matter what your politics are, you can't sit there and be like, but isn't that radical communism? It's like, shit, that sounds awesome. Because I love that. I used to eat them on the streets of New York all the time. That shit is fucking bomb. It's delicious ass food. But you're right. It costs more and more and more money because there are some fucking license owning landlords that are making this whole process more expensive. Do it. Great message, right? That's so easy. And like the viral clip, because the only thing I've seen of this is what comes up later, where she's like, this is a really easy question. Yes or no? Is Benjamin Netanyahu a war criminal? Of which the majority of the voters who matter in this case, who are going to possibly vote for you, or that magical, mythical, undecided category that people just completely forget about because they're so worried about appealing to the right. Fuck the right. Honestly. Fuck them. Let those gross ass weirdos stay in this fucking weird Nazi swamp that they've made for each other and just fester in there. Because wow, it just turns out all that happens in that is they all end up hating each other and fighting each other. It's men versus women, black versus white, Asian versus fucking indigenous, Jewish versus it's an endless battle. Straight versus homosexual, trans versus cis. All of them can just stew in their bigoted fucking hate pool. And meanwhile, you should be reaching out to people who actually just want to be like, life is getting harder and it sucks. What do? I got some things for us. Why don't we stop giving Israel, I don't know, $3 billion a year? You know, that $3 billion could be spent on a lot of other shit. Why don't we stop giving all these tax breaks to corporations? These people are already super rich. Why don't we stop that? That shit fucking sucks, right? I don't get it. You don't get any benefit from that. They just get a ton of benefits. They already are really well taken care of. Why don't we tax them a little bit more? Like if we just tax the really wealthy 1% more, we could build housing and end homelessness on the street. That'd be nice, right? Why don't we tax them 2% more and we can have a feeding program for children so we end child poverty. We got rid of homelessness, child poverty. Boom, boom. Why don't I go a step further? If we have a public grocery store, we're not getting rid of the other grocery stores. You can still go to expensive bodegas if you want to, all that kind of stuff. But if we had a publicly run grocery store, we could offer you incredibly cheap food at really, really low prices that's actually very healthy, including pre-made meals, and the whole thing can be subsidized. And you can choose to buy there if you want or not. You still get to go to the other grocery stores. You can go to Walmart, Safeway. You don't lose any of the stuff you already have. But if you wanted it, you have another option. We just tax the rich a little bit more then. Again, I'm talking 1%, 2%, 3%. That's it. They still get to stay as the super rich. So ultimately, if they threaten to shut this whole thing down, we're going to leave the country, we can't live in this communist hellscape that I'm proposing, they can threaten that all they want, but they won't. Because again, this is still a massive market and they still want to keep making money and they know that they get to stay on as the richest. They just don't want to pay anything at all. So they're really fucked up about that. But that's my sales pitch, right? And now the other side is going to freak out and froth at the bit and be like, well, because you're a Marxist neo-communist trying to make everyone trans. But in so doing, as I'm telling you, I'm going to make your life better. I'm going to give you free and cheap rent, groceries, all that kind of stuff, healthcare, schooling. I'm going to provide all this. You don't have to pay extra for it. Rich people do. That's my pitch. The other person's like, the trans genitals. Blah. They look deranged. And so do you want to vote for the deranged person who, again, is just some weird sicko obsessed with strangers' genitals? Or do you want to vote for me, the guy who's just saying right now, I'm going to make your life better, right? This is a pathway forward. People have shown this as a blueprint. It works. It's quite successful. Look at Zohar Mamdani even. I mean, again, this is his sales pitch was not, I want to make everyone trans. I am now going to enact policies that basically, will give everybody estrogen. He didn't say anything about that shit. At the same time, He's not doing what these centrist Democrats, the Ezra Kleins and the Matthew Iglesias are suggesting, where you just give up on human rights altogether because you think it'll win you a couple extra right-wing votes. Again, fuck the right-wing votes. Give up on that project. It has not worked. Jesus, it's so tiresome to have seen all the way since fucking the loss of Hillary Clinton in the fucking presidential election. Still, this philosophy is being touted time and time again, and I call it out every time, and people don't listen to me. Maybe because I'm Canadian, maybe because I'm a leftist, I don't know. But even like right before the election of Kamala Harris, I was starting to try and sound the alarm. Hey, there's two big obstacles that she has that she's not willing to really budge on. One of them is that this is a galvanizing moment of our time, the genocide of Palestinians, and she is offering up people who care about that nothing. Absolutely nothing. I think that'll be a disastrous, detrimental effect upon the ability for her to get elected. The second one is she is spending way more time appealing to the right, being like, I will be way worse on immigration than my potential candidate. I'm going to be tough. I am law and order. I'm going to have the most lethal military in the world. I appeal to the GOP. I appeal to the Republicans. No, you don't. They hate you. They hate you, and they want to own you, and they want liberal tears. It's all they have been thinking about. They care more now about liberal tears than they do the conditions of their own children. It's fucked up, I'll grant you, but that's just how it is. I don't make the rules. So you got to give this up. You really do. Democrats, you got to stop doing this thing where it's like, if we just work really hard at being as centrist as possible, running maybe some anti-choice, red state candidates, throwing trans people under the bus, being like, I'm sorry, we were wrong on trans rights. Look at this new poll that just came out. Apparently, the number of LGBTQ plus identifying youth is going down. Yeah, that's showing that more people are going into the closet because they're terrified right now. Now is not the time to offer them nothing in return, to be like, I'm sorry, but I said trans rights are human rights. I should have said with terms and conditions all along. This is a big thing. You are just giving into right-wing framing. All of this does is give into right-wing framing. I'm seeing the disaster of this play out in Canadian politics right now, where the Liberals who just came into power under a fucking, 180, by the way, they were about to lose, and then all of a sudden they reversed course because everyone got terrified of Donald Trump taking over the country, and nationalism soared, and the whole elbows up movement started. That's why Mark Carney won. But as soon as he won and he came into power as a neoliberal fucking stooge who cares about corporate interests more than any single one of his own citizens, he enacts all of these right-wing policies because he wants to steal them. So all of a sudden, you've normalized the right-wing positions. When he did that and just governed from the center-right, what happened to the right? Now the right are super anti-immigrant. Now the right are super anti-trans. Now the right are talking about how Hitler was actually a leftist and we have to battle National Socialism and the blood of the nation is being tainted by the immigrant and trans people are destroying gender and all this other shit. They're becoming MAGA. Because of course they are. Because you've taken away all of their positions and policies by making them your own. By pushing the Overton window to the right. By normalizing all of this rancid shit. All of a sudden, they got to become more rancid. It's a reflective response. It happens in every other political situation. Keir Starmer is doing the same thing in the UK right now. The exact same experiment. He's going real hard on immigrants. He's going real hard on trans people. He's trying to cut off the right and maintain power. And in so doing, Nigel Farage is suddenly looking really nice to a lot of the right-wingers who are like, no, I want Britain for the fucking British motherfuckers. I want the goddamn Red Cross instead of the British flag. I want the Crusades back. I want to persecute Muslims. I want to murder them. This is what I want, and this guy's my guy, not you. I don't want diet racist. I want racist. I want the real racists. Fuck you. So every time this happens, look, it's not something that is unique. It is just what happens. And meanwhile, the Cory Bookers of the world are so out of touch that they're like, I care a lot more about the circular firing squad than I do about the actual issues that you're bringing up that might be the concern of a vast amount of potential Democratic voters.
To me.
So a few things. One is, okay. I work in the Beltway. I live in the Central Ward in Newark, New Jersey. Streets that a lot of folks tell folks, why would you demean and degrade my communities? I keep a little picture here of the first place I represented in 28 years old, which is a Black community that's struggling. And we've transformed our schools, our supermarkets, new parks, urban farms, and the like. And the wonderful thing about those folks that I serve is that none of them question where I stand and how long, for more than a quarter of a century, have I stood with the people in their neighborhoods. Number two, So I may work in the Beltway, but I know where I came from and I know who got me here. And it's the struggling people that our party has done a pretty shitty job for, to be honest with you.
I agree.
Okay, number two, when you say things like Kushner, this and whatever, I remember the people who actually, when the Democratic Party was doing things like passing crime bills that put black people like me, when I was in my 20s and stopped by the police all the time, behind bars, the Democratic Party failed and fueled mass incarceration. And so the people that were there for me 30 years ago, doing prisoner reentry programs, getting people jobs and housing, I'm sorry. People like Kushner, who was there 30 years ago fighting for those fights, I'm not going to forget that they fought for black people when other people seem to be gung-ho with, hold on, let me finish.
Wait, is this the first CARE Act? What was that act called that you passed?
Well, that was only 10 years ago, the First Step Act.
What was that? Okay, I've read about that. It's really good. Yes, it's excellent.
And I'm sorry, I have to work across the aisle, and Charlie Kushner was, but for him, it wouldn't have gotten done. So again, when I go home, people do know people that got out of prison because of the First Step Act, and they knew the bipartisan coalition. Third, I'm sorry, I have real problems with Benjamin Netanyahu. Outrageous things that he's doing. The way you fight for those things is you sit down face to face with somebody and you fight with them. I'm not going to be outside of the room screaming. I want to look him in the eye, like me, Amy Klobuchar, and a whole bunch of other people did, and talk to him about humanitarian aid. And if people want to criticize me for it, then go ahead. But I'm leading in the Senate on West Bank crises right now, from their attempts to annex it or illegal settlements. I lead the legislation to sanction the people that are doing that. I can stand strong on my principles and still work to end these things. And I don't mind taking criticism, from folks that don't necessarily agree with my tactics. But we on this podcast right now, we share the same aim. Ceasefire now, humanitarian aid now, return the hostages now. And I'm going to work.
Do you think he's a war criminal, Benjamin Netanyahu? Do you think he's a war criminal?
Again, these are questions that a lot of people think are the important litmus tests that are loaded and hot. My urgency is to
yes or no question. Yes or no? Do you think he's a war criminal? I would like to start by saying that I think that this is something that people are using in order to investigate whether or not they think someone is a certain degree of pure, as in this is a test, something's done in order to detect how much purity one has. In that, I don't think that is productive. What we should be having conversations about is meat and potatoes issues, putting food on the plates, and getting people out there to vote. At the end of the day, I can be proud of my record, whether or not other people want to attack me for it, but that's because I'm a fighter, and always have been. You know, I was one of the first people who actually, like, this is how you did, it's just like you got politic brain. Spin, 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 spin. Hey, can I just talk to you as a human? Do you have that power anymore? Or is it just like, as much as I would love to answer that, I'd like to say that that's something that is being done again by my opponents in order to frame these kind of questions in a way that I know are going to get us to disagree with one another. And we can do that. That's healthy and fine. And I even encourage it. But I got to say, as a fighter, as someone who wants to put food on the table for the people who need it the most, the impoverished members of a community, I am here to bring up, like, that's all you got to just whoop, 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 whoop. Then again, whoop, 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 whoop. But can I just answer a question? Again, she frames it very simply. Yes or no answer. Is he a war criminal?
Podcast right now, we share the same aim. Ceasefire now, humanitarian aid now, return the hostages now. And I'm going to work.
Do you think he's a war criminal, Benjamin Netanyahu? Do you think he's a war criminal?
Again, these are questions that a lot of people think are the important litmus tests that are loaded and hot. My urgency.
Sure, fine. Have it your way, baby. Yes. I'd like to know, as a litmus test on your humanity, do you think a war criminal committing a genocide is bad? Yes or no? Because based on that, I mean, do I need to take anything else you say seriously? If you're like, I can't answer that, it's too difficult to question. Okay, well then the answer is no. Because for anyone else, I mean, it would be very obvious, including for the ICC, where he's wanted again for war crimes. There's an arrest warrant for him. It's open.
Is to be an effective leader in bringing an end to this crisis. And I get these questions all the time that, to me, undermine my urgency.
I think the thing that Democrats get so frustrated with, where we are right now, where you see like the Zoran Mamdanis and the Graham Plattners rise up, because they can go on podcasts and you can say, do you think Benjamin Netanyahu is a war criminal? And they just say, yes. And that's
Yes. And the other part of that is that why do you think that this is alienating to youth? You keep hearing this thing, especially in like elections, both in Canada and the US, where it's just like, it's been really hard getting youth to come out and vote, you know, or to get them activated. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the goon caves or the video games, if they're all playing Battlefield 6 all day, or they're just gooning nonstop. Whatever it is that's distracting those youth, those Gen Zs, they're just not active. It's because they're not inspired by this bullshit. They're smarter than you give them credit for. You expect them to just continuously accept the paradigm. We're not as bad as the other guy. So take time out of your day. We know that it feels hopeless, that everything feels nihilistic and like there's just no future for anybody, that the whole world is going to shit. I know you feel that, but guess what? Spend some time, dedicate yourself, go phone bank, go volunteer for me, knock on doors, do unpaid labor for me, and get people out to vote, all right? Because at the end of the day, I offer not that. That is my official policy. I am not that. And that's what I can bring to the table. And is that not inspiring? And it's like, yeah, what a surprise. Young people are not being galvanized by this message. They could care less about lying motherfucking sycophants who are just continuously espousing bullshit. Yeah, they're smart that way. Amazing. What a discovery. But then along comes Zoran Mamdani, who is offering them, again, very clear and concise messaging, who is saying, by the way, this whole thing is bullshit, capitalism's a lie, I want to bring you a better alternative to that. Hey, by the way, Israel's committing war crimes. The guy is a genocidal monster. I can say that out loud. Wow, look at that. I haven't been destroyed. I haven't been canceled. Everyone is trying, including the Democrats. They're refusing to get behind me. This is a message that clearly scares the shit out of them. But look at this. We now have, again, this podcast in which someone is saying very clearly to him, and he's not uncomfortable. Like, you can tell this is not a conversation he's enjoying. He's trying to reset it multiple times, right? Just do the face where it makes it look as if you were sad but attentive and you're paying attention because you listen. You're a good listener and you care about the people. And even in this instance where you're being criticized heavily, you're going to listen. So it's... And at that moment, she's asking you, why can't you answer a very easy yes or no question? And he's like, I believe that this is a very loaded litmus test right now, especially after you called me out for accepting hundreds of thousands of dollars in money from AIPAC, about whether or not I meet your standards of purity. That's my answer. And she's like, see, this is the problem, is that people, they don't like this. They want you to be able to answer this.
That's the end of it. It's not all of the rhetoric answering. It's like, what happens to Democratic politicians, they go through this like prism, and then we can't ever get like the answer to yes or no conversations like you do with Bernie and others. And that's the frustration for the Democratic base with leadership. Do I think Netanyahu is worse than Trump?
Yes. Do I think that we right now in America should be doing everything possible to bring peace, not just to that crisis, but to the ones that shock me that no.
Don't answer the question that you got asked. Answer the question you wish you got asked. Did she ask him, do you think that Benjamin Netanyahu is worse than Donald Trump? That's the question he wished that she had asked. And so, hey, I can answer your question, no problem, all right? You're saying that I'm running from this question? Here's my answer. Do I think that he's worse than Donald Trump? Absolutely. But look, we need to, and then boom, reset, whole thing.
No one talks about, and I hope, and I don't know if you guys have or not, but crises like Sudan, where there are American weapons literally causing horrific, in fact, by double, triple, quadruple, it's the biggest humanitarian crisis that we're not talking about as a country. When I was coming up, everybody was talking about Darfur. Now the moral silence is outrageous.
What a weird way to answer it, though, because this is basically all human tragedies matter. I agree. We should be speaking more about Sudan. Is that something you're now ready and willing to do? Are you going to start bringing this up on a regular basis? Are you going to ask about the close relationships that the United States has with Saudi Arabia? Are you going to talk about ending the relationship that the United States has with Saudi Arabia and how that exacerbates a lot of crises around the world, including crises in Yemen, right? Do we talk about Yemen anymore? It seems like complete radio silence on that, but like, yeah, there's an ongoing genocide of people in Yemen, including the mass starvation of children. We should talk about that more. Are we going to talk about the exploitation of people in the Congo and how a lot of that has to do with mining corporations, primarily and overwhelmingly from Canada, but also from the United States, and how this actually results in the conditions for the people living there could be completely exploited? Horrifying. Are you going to bring that up? We should talk about that more. I am completely on board. We should talk about Myanmar. Why don't we ever talk about Myanmar? Why don't we ever talk about the persecution of Muslims there And why don't we ever bring up the fact that a lot of the US aid that just got cut from Doge, here's a winning point for you, because this was being done by Elon Musk and Donald Trump. So let's bring this up, and that all of this refusal to bring US aid there is going to result in potentially millions of children who are going to die from starvation because this pre-digested food that has already been bought and paid for is just sitting in hangars going to waste. We could talk about that. Absolutely we could, but it's never done. It shouldn't only be brought up as a defense for not being able to properly call out a very dangerous death cult that the United States has with its relationship with a genocidal nation of Israel. That should be a thing that can be discussed. And if you bring it up, not be like, I mean, why haven't we talked about Sudan? Do you not care? Do you not care about what's going on there? Why would you ask me if Benjamin Netanyahu is a war criminal and not bring up Sudan? Do you even know what is going on in Sudan right now?
American weapons are being used in that conflict.
And the same with Israel. I mean, our weapons, and even Democratic politicians signed them before they were sent over to kill kids. This is, I really feel like if we get through this fascism, we have to have conversations like this, Senator. I think
but you're right. Where you're right is the Democratic Party. Again, as a Black guy in America, there are so many things we don't talk about that we need to have an honest conversation about. You're right. I work in a place that corruption has been accepted. Why are people taking corporate PAC money? Why are people trading stocks? I hold my...
Like you. Why are you doing it? She just called you out for that in real time. You said, I don't accept any money from corporate PACs or super PACs. And she was like, but you accepted money from AIPAC. Very small amount. I think it was over $800,000. That's in comparison to the amount of other stuff that I accept money from. That's small. I'm very, very proud of the fact that we have mostly 76%, I think, small-time donors. So
myself to the standard of what I want to see other elected officials. If I was a guy in Newark that I talk to about that don't believe their politicians stand and fight for them. And so I agree with you that there are real corruptions that we tolerate that we need to do something about. Campaign finance is one of the things. This is why I do not take certain money from everything from oil company C-suite folks to pharma company C-suite folks. These are all things that I believe. But every day that I get up here, I know the people of New Jersey want me to fight for them and their interests. And so when it comes to the fights we're in right now, I'm happy to be in a trench with everybody in my caucus, from Mark Warner all the way to Bernie Sanders. The whole caucus, we are united in a fight right now that I'm hoping, despite the disagreements within the Democratic tent, that we all can unify and say it's outrageous for people's healthcare costs to double their premiums. It's outrageous for 22 million Americans to lose their healthcare. It's outrageous for hospitals to have longer waits at the emergency room because people are going there to get their primary care.
Okay, so I looked this up. He did make a pledge in 2018 that he's no longer going to be accepting money from corporate PACs. Prior to that, he was accepting tons of money from corporate PACs, which in turn helped him rise into power. So it's one of those things where, like, you were fine accepting all of this kind of, like, you know, corporate PAC money, large corporate donors and stuff like that, up until the point where you became into power, and then you made a public pledge stating that you're no longer going to be doing that, while simultaneously still accepting money from AIPAC. Which, again, it's just like, that's a great start, sir. It's awesome. Maybe more people should start doing that. Hey, by the way, you know, now that I've been elected and I don't have to worry about, you know, so much the millions of dollars necessary to promote elections and stuff like that, and I've already got a brand and people like and trust me, I can start to say that I'm willing to become less dependent on the ability to be influenced by outside corporate money and funds. So take the pledge. And I'm not going to condemn that in and of itself, but to act as if that shields you from any of the criticism you've had so far in this conversation, and the questions you refuse to answer, like he's refusing to answer direct questions. Do you think Benjamin Netanyahu is a war criminal? Yes or no? If you think I'm, did you ask if he's worse than Donald Trump? I didn't. Okay, well, I'm just going to pretend you did. I think he's worse than Donald Trump.
Care. I go home every day, as I told you, or at least every week, to my community. And a lot of the things that I often talk about on podcasts like this, they don't give a damn about. They want to know what's going on with my rising costs, what's going on with my loss of health care, what's going on with the poisoning of my communities, because everybody wants to talk about them being an environmentalist, but nobody's talking about the toxic sites that are in communities like mine and community. What's going on with the fact that giving birth in this country is one of the most dangerous jobs you can have, especially for Black women. And so I hear you when I'm down here in the Beltway or get on podcasts, everybody wants to talk, well, you didn't vote 100% this way. Nobody asks me about that in communities that I'm fighting for in New Jersey. What they want to know is, what are we doing to make the American dream that I can buy a home, that I can afford health care, that I can afford to pay the groceries or pay for childcare? What are you doing? I spoke to the Teamsters last week, packed room, pissed at the Democrats, pissed at the Republicans. By the end of the speech, I had them on their feet applauding because I was saying things that they're not used to Democrats talking about, which is screw all this stuff that talked about up here. What are you doing for me and my family to represent us? I want to get the Democratic Party back to the basics that makes people believe in us again. And first, it is getting rid of corruption. And corruption means that I know my politician isn't bought and paid for, that I know my politician isn't trading stocks on information that I don't have, that I know my politicians aren't playing to somebody else's tune. Second is, what are you doing to make my life economically easier? Because 60% of this country can't afford America anymore, can't afford the American dream. Third, what are we doing for families? Because raising a kid in this country increases your chance of going below the poverty line by over 100% just by having a child, because that's how expensive it is. And again, healthcare, being able to have a child without dying. These are the basics our party wants. People don't want all the bells and whistles. They don't want all the bullshit.
Yeah, I know. I hope they call him out. I mean, what I've learned is he's really good at filibustering.
Political talks that we all always get tripped up on. What are you doing for us? And the fight that we're in right now in Washington against Donald Trump, and you and I might agree on a lot of the things, threats to democracy, a lot of these things that we talk about. But when I go home, people are just so pissed off that they can't afford America anymore. And that's what we need to be talking about.
Listeners, sometimes it's...
I'll be honest, really big shout out to I've Had a Podcast. I think they're doing an excellent job here, and I know that some people think they're too lib-pilled, but at the end of the day, there's a necessity to be able to reach out to people who might not be as radical Antifa super soldiers as myself. And, I'm never going to be able to appeal to those demographics. I'm never going to be able to reach out to someone who's just effectively looking to get brunch back, right? Because I've already said fuck brunch, and people got really mad at that. And they didn't understand that I too love brunch. Who doesn't love brunch? Who doesn't love meals within meals? All right, I love it. If instead of having breakfast or lunch, we can have a secret third thing. What about dinner? Dinner never gets discussed enough, but dinner's pretty awesome too. Well, what about a breakfast for dinner? I mean, that's delightful in the best of times and in the worst of times. So I'm not here to say that it's bad to enjoy brunch. I'm just saying that thinking that it's like some form of political activism to show up to a rally for an hour and then shout no kings and then be like, all right, so where are we hitting brunch? And then going to brunch and then posting all the pictures of you at the rally on the Instagram. That's not the same thing as revolutionary action, right? And that's not actually going to defeat fascism. That's a little bit more performative than anything. So there are people who are actually putting in the work and trying to actually step into harm's way. And not just that, like civil disobedience doesn't have to be the only form of activism. There's people who are doing excellent things in terms of trying to provide food for people in community building programs right now. That's radical action as well. If you are wondering how can you participate, that's a really easy place to start. I've always said, I don't know if you know this, but your city probably has food pantries, probably has fridge programs, where you can go and donate any kind of foodstuffs, non-perishable items, stock them, do that in a group of people, join programs like Food Not Bombs, etc., in order to bring people who don't have support from the systems that are failing them the support that they need. And in so doing, you're helping the world. Donate blood, since it's important. The world does need blood. People need it to live, and when you do it, apparently you save 2.5 lives every time. So you can go out and you can do something that changes the world, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to do it just for the gram. You can do it because you want to build a better world for everybody. But doing that actually does help bump up your own hope in humanity. Because right now, I think the problem is that humanity is kind of failing. It's going to shit, and a lot of people are basically recognizing that and being like, well, everything sucks now, and the only real solutions seem to be this constant talking down circular logic of, well, yeah, but don't ask the tough questions, as they did. They asked the tough questions there. It was really good. I was a fan of it.
Thank you so much to our patrons for making this show possible. We could not fund it without you. And if you want to join, please check out patreon.com/theserfs to unlock bonus episodes, uncensored content, and all the good stuff. Thanks to Anna Loves Riley, Addercap, Bobby Lasers, Cheryl Alvarez, Comrade Junkie, Doug Caddy, Everything Important, Hegbard Salim, Multimondi, Omni, Political Papi, Preston Kroll, Quiet One 85, Riley and Anna, Roller Dragon, Cernicus, Stellar Gwyn, Sebastian Demmel, Tigwick, and Words Greenwood.